Hello and welcome to another session of speaking module as part of our course in English. Almost all sorts of managers, engineers, scientists, researchers, and sometimes even entertainers have to make presentations involving numbers, various kinds of parameters, year, distance, units, growth, decline, and quite often we make some mistakes and we are misunderstood. Our presentation fails to make the impact it ought to make. Today, we will look at some of these aspects of the presentation. Go next. How crucial is it to have it right? How crucial is it to say 13 rather than 30? How crucial is it to sound like saying 13 rather than 30? You might in ordinary life think, oh, it hardly matters. Somebody is coming to my place and I can tell him, from the railway station to my home, you can walk down in 30 minutes. Now, if he understands 30 or 13, hardly matters. No, that's not the case. In many places, in many domains and sectors of life, this can lead to serious, irreversible losses. The most recent and the most famous case in the memory of all of India is the crash, the collision between two aircrafts over the airspace of Delhi, Gurgaon, when one cargo aircraft coming from Russia, preparing to land in New Delhi airport, crashed against a Gulf Air flight just taking off from New Delhi airport to Dubai. The simple mistake was that the air traffic controller had told the Russian pilot, start descending and wait at the height of 30,000. The pilot, not an English speaking pilot, heard it as 13,000 feet. So he freely came down to 13,000 feet, and before he realized, his left wing or perhaps his right wing brushed against the tail of the Gulf Air aircraft taking from New Delhi airport. There were over 300 passengers on that flight bound for America, some for Dubai, mostly for America. None of them survived. Neither the half a dozen or so crew that were flying the Russian aircraft survived, for the simple reason that the pilot of one had confused a certain number for another number. If you look at the history of air traffic accidents, you will find this history full of similar accidents, avoidable, easily avoidable, but irreversible accidents, because either the pilot or the air traffic controller heard one number whereas another number was meant. It is therefore extremely important that when somebody says 90, we should hear it for 90 rather than for 19. That is one sort of problem. Look at another. 40 is frequently misunderstood for 14, or 14 is frequently misunderstood for 40. Similarly with 15, similarly with 13, similarly with 17. Okay, there is another problem. Many people, because they often tend to speak in a hurry, rapidly, rather carelessly, without being sure to articulate all the sounds that might be there in any given word. They produce that word. As a result, they are misunderstood. Many people in Asian and African countries do not pronounce English 5 with all the sounds, fa, e, v. In a great hurry they pronounce, or maybe because of habit, they pronounce 5 as 5, 25 as 25, and not just one, many numbers. Okay. As a result, again, there are accidents. So we need to pronounce numbers, letters of alphabet, which taxiway, which runway, which sector, which road, which avenue, Today, the way cities are changing, all sectors in all cities look alike except for the signboard. If instead of P you read it as G or V or C or D or E, you have had it. You can go on and on and on, and you would never reach where you wanted to reach. This confusion can be pretty irritating, causing losses of business, friends, and precious time. Next. Then, other than the pronunciation of numbers, missing sounds in the middle, missing sounds in the beginning, missing sounds at the end, stressing them wrongly. Other than all these things, there is another problem. Whenever you make a presentation, particularly when you have 2 or 3 dimensions, time, people, place, how has COVID affected different populations in India in 2013 in different months, whereas Italy was the highest in March, April and May. America began overtaking it, followed by Britain, followed by places like Iran, India. Okay? So, when you have more than one axis, when you have 2, 3 axes, when you have time, place, numbers, rate of growth, when you have 2 or 3 countries together, then you necessarily use words which pertain to quantities. Say words like, quantifiers like much, many, little, few, or all, none, any, many, mostly, rarely, seldom, often, frequently, hardly. All of these things indicate numbers. Prepare your listeners to take the number that will follow. Not many people came. Out of about 200 that had been invited for this talk, only 67 people turned up, which makes it fewer than maybe 1/3. Okay? So, in this manner, you have words like billions, dozens, groups of numbers, billions, dozens, hundreds, zeros. In some cultures, we say 00. In some cultures, we say 000. In some cultures, we do not say that. We just say 100. In some countries, places like India, we say 100. or 9444. In some places you don't do that. You just say 9444. So, you should be sensitive while making a business presentation, while making a formal presentation. You should be sensitive to cultural aspects also. As I have been telling you on this course, you can get away with mistakes of pronunciation and grammar, but you cannot get away with mistakes of culture, with mistakes of discourse. At the global level, what is it you are going to say? If you confuse present tense for past tense, you might be misunderstood. Okay? So, also get these words right that indicate groups of numbers, words like billions and dozens. Then words pertaining to number, first, last, second, next, initial, final, ultimate, penultimate, the second best, the topmost, last, smaller than, greater than, or that show fractions of numbers like percent. Many of us in Asian countries pronounce this word as percent. We are fond of saying 67% of Asian population still lives in villages. Factually that might be correct, but pronunciation wise that is not correct in English. We should say 67% of the total Asian population still lives in its villages. Okay. So, these words, the moment they are bisyllabic words, they have a pronunciation. You can't say percent, you have to say percent, which means per hundred, x out of 100, portion, proportion, ratio, part, partly, wholly, substantially, several, seldom, significantly, relevant. All of these words pertain to groups, quantities, comparisons of numbers, and it is very important that we get them right and we produce them right. And it is so simple. All we have to do is to look at and remember their pronunciation. Go next. And once you deliver all numbers carefully, correctly, you will make an effective and impactful presentation, because people come prepared to listen to you, prepared to understand you. They are waiting for numbers, they are looking for numbers. When you give them a seminar on how small businesses have fared during the period of Corona or COVID-19, they expect you to present numbers, and they will get it right if you produce it right. Just as you and I are prepared to understand numbers when we are, for instance, at an airport, or for instance when we are at a railway station, a bus station. So the moment it says that train number 9667 bound for New Delhi is arriving on platform number 7, then no matter how noisy the ambience, we get the train number and we get the platform number. That is because our mind has eliminated all other noise and is focusing on just those two slots, the train number and the platform number. So that is how a lot of people who have researched these things, why people misunderstand one another, why mishearings occur. One answer is that people are perverted and they deliberately mishear you, they deliberately misunderstand you. Now that, as I said, that's an incorrect answer. That's a perverted opinion. The proper opinion is people mishear you because they don't hear you properly. Maybe you have not articulated them properly. You have not pronounced the numbers and words related to numbers carefully. Therefore, it is important that you should do these things with extreme care in the beginning. Once you get used to them, Once you get used to say percent rather than percent, then even in your sleep, if somebody asks you what percent of India's population lives in its villages, and you would, without blinking, without batting an eyelid, you would say 67% of India's population lives in its villages, or 67% of Asia's population lives in its villages. Okay? It's just a matter of practice, it's routine, it's a skill. It doesn't require great intelligence or insight. All we need to do is some practice, some focus, and some determined presentation. Next, the second thing is, time. Many of us pack too much within limited time. It's like, packing your suitcase. All boxes, all suitcases, all holding bags are designed to contain only a certain number of shirts or certain number of books or a certain number of saris or any other piece of, any other type of garment. But many people do not respect that limit. Even if it is meant only for about 10 shirts, they want to put in 13 or 14 or 15 and use all the force to crush it, press it. They sometimes sit upon the lid of the box or stand upon the lid of the box and they somehow shut it down, close it. It is all right for one or two goes, but then it breaks on the hinge, and it breaks at a critical time when you expect it least and when you can face great embarrassment. Similarly, some people also pack a lot of material of speech in limited time. They have got only 2 minutes, but in those 2 minutes they want to say everything. So imagine you have only 40 seconds to say, I accept Nobel Prize, and you have to say something witty, something relevant, something interesting. Okay. Now you cannot present your entire biography. You can say, well, I began preparing for this moment since I was born, and even in my mother's lap I dreamt that I was going to get a Nobel Prize, and today is the moment when I am receiving the Nobel Prize. I got so many marks in writing essays in the school. All that is redundant, because in 40 seconds you cannot say all that. In 40 seconds you can only say what has helped you reach this point in 1 or 2 sentences. All you can say is, I did not, for example, if Dickens were there, he would have said, I did not know writing about poor could make me rich. Something relevant, something humble, something, relevant, and something brief, precise, to the point. These things are not difficult, provided you give it time. If you prepare before presentation, that is, if you have 2 minutes to speak, prepare only for 110 seconds. Keep those 10 free seconds in your hand, and you will find you are able to you can make a great presentation, a memorable presentation, which everyone will like, enjoy and remember, just as you yourself would. Next, I am going to make a presentation of, it does not matter, what photograph you have, as Mahatma Gandhi said, and as Indian tradition has always said, entire world is one family, is my family. I am a part of entire world. If there is sorrow and unhappiness anywhere, then all of us will sooner or later face that unhappiness, and no generation has seen it much more clearly than ours. But here is a sort of outlines of a report about the state of education of girls in India. According to this report, it pertains to India. We have given you the link, you can check for the facts, but here, look at some small set of data and make a radio talk. Please go on. Next. These are the data. These are the numbers and these are the categories, numbers pertain to. All you have to do is to make a radio report. What is so unique about radio report? Unique thing about radio report is you are communicating only through your voice. Okay. In television is a multimedia. You see and hear, you read and hear, you read and listen, but here you only listen in radio. And that is why, and there have been lots of highly successful broadcasters. They have done a great job of radio broadcasting. They have had followers in hundreds of millions, both in entertainment industry and in business reporting. You can look up the history of radio. Now, what they did was the following. Whenever they had to give numbers, they made it as simple and used lots of other words so that they prepared their audience to get the numbers right, and then they spoke. They gave the numbers and there were no misunderstanding ever. Look at the data, given data, and make a 2-minute report. Go on. Next. Now, as I said, prepare a 2-minute radio report on the state of education and well-being of girls in India on the basis of what has been, on the basis of the data that have been given. Now, you can look at those words and mechanically reproduce them. That won't fetch you much because it doesn't say anything about relative values. So, a good report should not only give absolute numbers, it should also give relative values. What happened in this country in this year, while something else happened in some another country, so that you get a global picture. Is it that girls in Africa alone are deprived, or is it that girls in Europe and North America alone need a chance, and an opportunity to do something in life? So, this is a multinodal comparison, and multinodal comparisons happen best when you go beyond what you see. You will see some absolute numbers, but not so easily visible would be the relationship between these numbers. So, while making the presentation, for instance, highlight the fact that even those that have gone through the primary school have hardly learnt anything. Just look at the report and look at it, and it says something that a lot of people have not gone to primary school, a lot of girls in particular. The dropout rate is high among girls rather than among boys. But even those that complete primary school education do not acquire all those skills which at the end of 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of schooling they ought to. Okay? So, look at some of these things and you will sure make a very interesting radio report. And after 1 or 2 practices, you will find that is some of the easiest thing that you can do. Okay? As you prepare your work, check with the model answer given below. Next. Okay? Check with the answer. I am not saying it must be exactly this, but by and large, mostly, is not that this answer, this report cannot improve. You can sure do better than this. Every time you go back to a written thing, a prepared thing, you can always make it still better. Okay? It's all a matter of time and desire, inclination. Do you want to? If you want to, you can always make a wonderful performance. Next. Next. If you find your report is not as good as it ought to be, it misses something in some part, then redo it and don't give up. Once you do that, you can do a variety of things on your own. Say for example, I have given you example of another something related to numbers. Look at these and make another presentation. Check if you presented all that you saw, if you presented relationship between all that you among all that you saw, and some relevant conclusion, some relevant highlight, and some practice in this manner with about half a dozen sets of data will prepare you, will make you a wonderful business presenter. Okay, go next. Thank you very much and good luck.